Hello there guys, Elite Legionario here, and today I'm bringing you, I think it's the 8th or the 9th, I think it's the 8th historical battle walkthrough for Rome Total War. This is the Battle of Cynocyphlae. I believe Cynocyphlae means the Battle of the Dog's Heads, I think. If my memory serves me right, I might be wrong there, not that that's really that relevant, well it is relevant, but it's not important, not really. So anyway, enough of my waffling on, let's enjoy the intro and then we'll get into it when the battle begins.
Thessaly, northern Greece. This is the army of Titus Flaminius, camped below the Cynocyphlae ridge. It is morning, and Flaminius has sent a scout party up onto the ridge to survey the terrain. 2 days have passed since the Macedonians were first sighted at Pherae to the south. There, Flaminius defeated Philip in a cavalry skirmish. Flaminius suspects that the enemy are close by. How right he will turn out to be. Formed his phalanx spearmen into a line across the top of the ridge. It's going to be a difficult battle. Phalanx spearmen are tough to beat in a frontal assault, especially going uphill. However, not all of Philip's left flank is in position. A decisive strike here could be a chance to seize the initiative. Then, to the task at hand, may the strength of the eagle carry the day.
Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that. Now the Battle of Cynocyphlae, personally when I first did this battle, I actually basically worked out the right strategy for it straight away. It's actually quite obvious what you need to do here. You got a pre-Marian Roman army, but you do have some elephants, which comes in pretty handy. And this is really a good example of Roman flexibility coming to work in here. Basically what you want to do is, I'll unpause it and we can see. What you want to do is get your Astarte and your Principe and things and just bring them up onto this hill at the side here. Take that high ground and make the phalanx go uphill, because you'll do much better against it, because you don't want to fight it on even terrain straight on, because your pre-Marian troops will get outclassed by it. But if you come up here, it's not too difficult. Now, what you want to do too is use these two mercenary hoplites you've got and put them at the back to face the ungrouped left flank of the Macedonian army, and use your elephants to help run that area amok. That's what I'm doing here. Well, I take this high ground, so the time the Macedonians get here, you're going to have the high ground, and they're going to be at the bottom. Or coming uphill basically, and then you can just get like rear charges with your cav and your elephants. Now I usually, doesn't always happen, but in this particular instance I had to put my triarii up the front because the enemy's general unit sometimes charges you, and when that happens, it can do a lot of damage to your actual infantry, so the Triarii sometimes had to be put up the front. Doesn't always happen, but when I was recording this particular battle it did. So over here you want to deal with these elephants. I don't know why it's just doing that little pausing thing, but I hope it'll stop. And because Phalanx Pikemen have such bad morale, they usually rout before you even actually get your elephants into them. It's just how easy it is to actually rout them if you get them in just circled. And for now I'm just regrouping over here. I've got my general up on the high ground there. And if you get an opportunity like this where you can destroy these peltasts, you can easily take that as well. And you should quickly try and mop up the remainder of that flank. But don't run your general too far if he's going to get too far from his own lines of support, or he's going to get caught up in the phalanx. So just regroup as you need to here. It's pretty straightforward, pretty standard this fight. Once you've defeated the flank there, you can take it up to the high ground like I was initially going to do there. Always take the elephants up to the high ground, because coming down from a downhill charge is way more effective than just a standard charge. So his general unit's coming in here, so I had to bring my Triarii through. And you can kill the general right away this way. You can sometimes use the Peltist units to hold them up while you get those Triarii in. And bring the two hoplites out to the bottom left flank so nothing gets around your flank there basically. Because sometimes the AI will try, but always bring the elephants up so you get those nice high up, the high ground downhill charges, which come in exceptionally handy. And then you can start unleashing your peeler as the pikes come in, because they're fighting uphill, and it's pretty much as soon as you get behind Phalanx Pikemen they should pretty much rout. These ones probably won't straight away because they've got really, really high upgrades. But there's the general there, that's where the Triarii come in useful. Now you can try and run off some of the skirmishes, you can wait for some units to get pinned up. At this stage my Triarii are actually stuck, which is not really intentional, but it still slows down my opponent because I no longer need them for the cav anyway. But you can use them to outflank if you want to as well, it just depends. Didn't get very much momentum on that charge there, so you should just keep repeating until you get good momentum. Over here there's some elephants trying to get in behind my flank, not elephants, sorry, the enemy units trying to get in behind my flank. As you can see the general unit is fully routing now, but you can easily see once it's outflanked these units are not that difficult to defeat, and you can just keep kind of getting behind it and wearing them down. And unfortunately sometimes what happens, some of the Macedonian units will go up to the high ground, so you have to kind of pull units off. However, you can see because I use the Triarii in there, I actually have units spared to do that. However, they will be fighting uphill, so I like to try and quickly rout as many of these Macedonian units, and they do have a tendency to last a while simply because they're so heavily upgraded. But if Phalanx Pikemen do become outflanked, they have very, very low morale when they're outflanked, and they rout very, very quickly. But in this case they sometimes don't, only because they've got so many upgrades. That's pretty much the only reason. Otherwise, as you can see, they just all chain rout en masse. But usually they will chain rout pretty quickly, especially when you get elephants behind them, as you can see there. Overall, Cynocyphlae is not that difficult. It's pretty obvious really what to do. I mean, remember the first time I actually tried this, I thought I'll just go up onto the side of this hill, get the high ground, try and take it away from my opponent. It's quite obvious really. Fighting it where you start, this is not a good place to start fight it at all. Basically what I do now is just kind of clean out whatever's left that hasn't routed, mostly mopping units up. You have to fight uphill a wee bit, so you can use your Roman flexibility here to get around the units' flanks, and just try and pick units off basically. Your elephants are pretty slow moving, but once they get into the flank of anything they will rout it pretty quickly. But you can use your infantry, just take the high ground again and circle units. Those pelters over there won't last very long or anything like that. It's good to try and get units before they can regroup, just for the sake you don't want to have to draw a fight out longer than necessary. But Cynocyphlae is pretty straightforward, you just take this high ground really. Make sure you don't lose your elephants unnecessarily and just go from there. It's pretty straightforward. I do believe Teutoburg Forest is next, and that is much, much harder. It's not real hard, but it's definitely the hardest historical battle in my opinion. And that's going to be coming up next, so if you want a real tricky one, that's the one to go for. The Germans give you a hell of a rush in that one. So at this point you use your infantry to pin up what's left, and then bring your elephants and your general's bodyguard behind the lines and repeat the process. A very straightforward battle, just get that high ground and you should be fine. Your Roman flexibility should work for your advantage, and with that elephant you can get into the flank, and those phalanx pikeman's morale was nowhere near good enough to stand up to that. But don't fight them down on the ground below you where you start, because fighting them frontal like that is just, it's more work, it's harder. It's not to say it's impossible, but you might as well make it easier for yourself and do it the most practical way. Because fighting in the high ground and terrain and giving yourself those advantages is just typical. You should do that. Unless it's like, you know, multiplayer and you're hill camping and it's kind of cheap and, you know, that stuff. Most of you already know that though, but these historical battles, it's not against the AI, and you got to win by any circumstance. So taking the high ground on the right is the easiest way to do this particular battle, and it is fairly straightforward. Make sure you just, you know, use those two hoplites to knock out the part that comes off to the far right of your guys, and use your elephants to clean up and then take the high ground.
Enemy army.
There you go, a clear victory. So it's a pretty easy battle, really, as long as you just follow those specifics and take the hill. Don't fight on the ground below, because it makes it harder than it needs to be, and try and make sure your elephant doesn't get snagged up, and just use that in your general to get lots of hammer and anvils, and you'll find them routed pretty quickly. Specifically there, let's see, we've got all the kills. The elephant's got a few, the hoplite's actually got a few, they're interesting. The general got a lot. Not too many losses there, really. Probably more to the Triaro than I should have allowed, but I just didn't bother pulling them back, really. But you can easily do that. It does allow you to free up units if there are units trying to get around to your upper flank, like there was in this fight. Well, honestly, Cynocyphlae is not that difficult. Just take that hill and use Roman flexibility to outmaneuver them. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon next time.